Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're regular here, you know by now I review many photographic, audio and video related products. Well, today we are reviewing a camera, but it's a camera in a mobile phone. Now, I don't do mobile phone reviews. I love my mobile phones, we all use them. But I'm reviewing this one because it's got some great camera features, and I haven't come across a mobile phone with such really good camera features. I actually purchased this phone purely because of a camera on it. I heard so many good things about it. I really wanted to see, can a mobile phone replace the traditional DSLR or mirrorless camera? And I think the answer to that is no. But I do think also that it can complement it. So it is a difficult one really, because mobile phones, I mean, the one we're talking about is this one here, the Sony Experia 1 Mark II, and fairly traditional phone. It's got a 6.5 OLED 4K display, really nice display, and I do like that about this phone. It's got a lovely display. What I'm more interested in isn't the phone features. I mean, it's got a Snapdragon processor, so many other traditional Android features. It's fast, responsive, and you know, a nice OLED screen. But I wanted to see how good the camera is, because I've not been happy with camera phone images, be it video or be it stills. I found them pretty, you know, boring. I mean, not the sharpest of images, and they look very digital. They just look, I don't know, they just don't look right. And a lot of that is down to the fact that you've got really small cameras and small sensors in these phones. So even with this one, you can see here, fixed aperture lens. So you've got no control of the aperture. It's a fixed aperture lens with these mobile phones. Maybe one day they'll be able to bring out a phone that really does compete against a mirrorless camera or a DSLR camera. We don't know when that day will be, but they're getting really close. And a lot of it is computational photography, and that's how they get around a lot of it. They create false bokeh. I think it looks pretty, you know, naff. But then that's because I'm a photographer, and I would think it's pretty naff. For the man in the street that just wants some nice pictures, some nice portrait pictures, and they're only going to put them up on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, will look absolutely fine. Now, let's get into what we're here for, and let's get into these camera apps. What Sony have put into this phone is their two really good apps, and it's called Cinema Pro, which is your video app, and Photo Pro, which is your photographic app. It's also got a traditional camera app. I'm not going to go into detail on that. It's much the same as any other camera phone. And you've got your bog standard, you know, settings here for you know, your camera. Whether you want to take video, whether you want to take still, you just switch it over to whichever one you want. That's straightforward enough. And you've got your three lenses or three camera modules. So you've got your let's have a look at it on here. So you've got your telephoto, you've got your extreme wide, standard and telephoto, and that is the same on pretty much any of the modern smartphones. The telephoto is a 70mm fixed aperture lens, a 70mm lens on the back of the camera, and the standard one's a 24mm lens, fixed aperture 24mm. That's equivalent to full frame terms. That's not what they are, but that's what they're equivalent to. And your ultra wide is a 16mm fixed aperture lens on the back of the phone. The biggest downside I've ever found with taking photographs with a phone is not having a proper shutter button, and you're having to hold it like this, and you're sort of, you can't hold it. Well, I've got it round the wrong way. You can't hold it. No, I haven't. Yes, I have. That is the right way round. You can't hold it. You see how I struggle with mobile phones for taking photographs. With a traditional camera, it's awesome. You've got your screen, you've got your camera, and you've got your shutter button. Isn't that nice and simple? You know, you can't beat that, can you? You just take the photograph like that, focuses, etc, etc. Mobile phones traditionally, you go into your camera app and then you've got a really slim lump of plastic, metal, whatever, and you have to kind of hold it like that and push the button here. Well, it's not a button. Push this here to take the photograph. It just annoys me. But what Sony have done with this phone, which is great, and I think it's because they're very heavily involved in mirrorless design and mirrorless cameras. In fact, they're the top-selling brand as far as mirrorless cameras, such as the A7 range, the A6600. I'm actually filming the wide shot up here with my A6600. And what they've done on here, we've got your Photo Pro app and your let's go into Photo Pro so you can see now completely different layout you see here. And what's great about this layout, it mimics what you would see on a Sony sort of A7 III, A7C, whatever, their mirrorless range of cameras, and it's great. So you've got quite a large viewfinder here for actually seeing what you're photographing, and you've got your exposure compensation, which is there. You can choose what mode, so whether you want programmed, automatic, shutter priority, manual recall we don't want. I don't know, off. Let's come out of that. Don't know why. There are a few quirks with this the camera phone, I can tell you. Not many, but there are a few quirky things about it. But and I'm going to show you one of them in a minute, which really annoys me. But so let's go into, so it's a shutter priority, manual. So if you're in manual, you can adjust your ISOs, your shutter speed. You can't adjust the aperture for obvious reasons, because it's a fixed aperture lens. It's a mobile phone, so you can't adjust the aperture. There isn't an aperture priority mode. So I would probably use either shutter priority or programmed automatic. So if you go into program mode, where you're going to still adjust the aperture, you can adjust your focus settings, whether you're using autofocus continuous or autofocus single, and it can shoot a burst up to 20 frames a second in RAW. Isn't that phenomenal? I mean, that's great, you know. I've not played with that, but that's one of its apparently one of its big selling points. You've got focus areas you can set, ISO that you can set. I generally leave it on auto ISO, but just be a bit careful with this phone. As with all mobile phones, they're not great in low light. I've found that anything higher than 800 ISO, you tend to, you know, you're stretching your luck, really. You're going to get noisy images, and obviously the higher the ISO, the noisier the images are going to get. And it's got all these excellent features. And what I do love, if we can demonstrate this, I don't know, let's have a look. It's got a proper shutter button. So if we, that's one of the quirks, that is, this quirk is crazy. It really annoys me, right? So you're in your Pro Photo app, and then if you view an image, so you want to view your images, there's your images, you're viewing them, lovely jubblies, and you want to go back to the camera. When you click on the camera app, it takes you back. When it takes you back, it takes you to the standard camera app. And isn't that stupid? You know, it takes you to the standard camera app. It doesn't take you back to the app that you was in. I find that really quirky. That's really quirky. I don't, you know, find that bonkers. But so we've got to go back out of that now. We go back into Photo Pro. So now we're in Photo Pro. It's got the focus and eye autofocus is phenomenal. It's very much like the Sony mirrorless cameras, and it's got a shutter button, a proper dedicated shutter button. And you can see there, I don't know actually if you can see there, hopefully you can see there, it's picking out the face. Can we see that? Let's turn this around a bit more that way. You might be able to see it better now. So yeah, you can see there, but it's picking out Laurel or Hardy's face, I'm not sure which one. And you've got one click autofocus, you see a little green dot on his eye, and then full press and it takes for photo. It has great feature, a proper video and stills camera feature. That really like that. So again, half press picks up the eye, full press takes a photograph. Doesn't matter what you're photographing, that's how it will work. So again, you half press and you see all the green dots shows you the focus points, and then do that and that takes a photograph, which is awesome. So it acts like a proper camera, and it's borrowed those features from the Sony mirrorless range of cameras. They say it's borrowed it from the A9, so it's got the autofocus of the A9, but to be fair, I think they're cheating a wee bit, because it's such a small sensor and such a small lens that it hasn't got a lot of work to do to get the autofocus right, but it does work, and that's the important thing. It does work, and it gives you that sense of using a proper camera. It gives you, psychologically, it feels great. It feels much nicer than using other Android phones or using your iPhone. Well, it does for me anyway. So I feel much more comfortable taking photographs with this camera than I would with my iPhone or my Samsung Note 10, because it feels, I don't know, I feel, it's a psychological thing. I feel like I'm handling a proper camera. Now the results, let's have a quick look at the results here. Now I've taken a few test shots in the garden when I went out and about, and it doesn't matter what I click on. Let's have a look here. Now it shoots RAW as well as JPEGs, and I think that's phenomenal. That's really, really useful. And I do find straight out of camera they're not great, and I was quite disappointed. But if you're using RAW or DNG files, they are RAW files effectively, you can do so much with them, and the results are really good if you're prepared to do a wee bit of editing. So if you look here, the results, the text is nice and sharp. The clarity is really, really good, and surprising that these have come out of a mobile phone. I mean, that is so sharp. That is such nice images. The downside with using a mobile phone, you don't get you get tremendous depth of field, so you don't get that lovely bokeh, and you can't get that lovely bokeh simply because the fact that it's a mobile phone. But as long as you understand that when you're using a mobile phone, I mean, even a brickwork, the clarity is really good, but you do have to edit them. You can't rely on the images straight out of camera. Well, I don't think you can, but if you're prepared to put a little bit of time into edit, I haven't even added any sharpness to them, but if you're prepared to spend a little bit of time editing the images, you'll get some really, really nice images out of the sensor from this camera. So that's for stills pro photo mode. Now what we'll do, we'll have a look at the pro video mode, and the video mode on this camera is called Cinema Pro is what they call it. So what we'll do, we go into Cinema Pro, and you'll see it loads up Cinema Pro, and there we have don't block the lens, there we have Cinema Pro, and it's great because it's got, again, the professional features you'll find on a Sony cinema line camera, so much so that the shutter speeds are not classed as shutter speeds. It's done as shutter angle, which is what you find on pro cinema cameras. So you would set, when you go into shutter angle, normally, because everything's manual with this app, there isn't particularly an automatic setting. You can set auto ISO, which is great. So you would select your shutter angle according to what your preference is. Now, we would normally set 180 degrees because that's the correct setting for 56.3. I'm going the wrong way. So you would set 180 degrees, and that would give you, and that's it, 180 degrees. You can see there that's set as 180 degrees. And that's what you would traditionally set. Although if you're doing any effects, you might want it faster, you might want it slower, whatever. And you can set your frame rate. I'm in the UK, so I would set it as 25 frames a second, which is great. And you can set your looks. But it isn't like a LUT, a lookup table, where it doesn't burn that look into the image. This actually burns the look into the image. So you set your look. I got NA, I guess that stands for not applicable, I don't know. I think that's more of a Rec 709 look, but they've got even the Venice CS look, which is their cinema line of cameras. It's too dark in here. I need to set the ISO up higher. I've got it set to ISO 64, so I would set that to ISO, you know, so you can go up to about 800, and it's complete. Well, that's maximum 800 on this app anyway. So you can see now that we're starting to get an image, which is really good. And you also set projects, which is very much like a professional cinema camera. So you set your project, and then you film. Now, when you start filming on with this app, so if we look at that and I click the record button, that brings the display bigger, so you can actually clearly see what you're doing. But it's a cinema, it's not 16:9, it's a cinema aspect ratio, so it's wider. You get black bars at the top and bottom of the screen, but it gives you a gorgeous cinematic look. And it records it 10-bit, so it's a 10-bit CinemaScope, basically, aspect ratio. But in the edit, you can crop that down to 16:9 because you're working with a higher quality image. And from a mobile phone, I think that is phenomenal. If you look here, now it's also HLG. This threw me out when I started editing it. It records it in HLG format. So you've got really, really good dynamic range for bringing the shadows back into detail and bringing the highlights down, which is great. If we look at here, now I've started editing this, you can see here the black bars on the top and the bottom of the screen. If we blow it up bigger, but it gives that gorgeous look, the gorgeous colours. Now I've not really colour graded this at all, and this is a great thing with it. You can grade it, but just be aware you probably will need to, because it's a HLG file. You'll need to go into an edit program that can handle HLG files, and Final Cut Pro 10 does, Adobe Premiere does. So you need to have some editing skills if you're going to use this particular app. But it's beautiful. You can get some really, really nice looks. See, look at that. It's lovely, isn't it? Looks really good. It's sharp. It's detailed. If I take off the conversion that I've done to it, that's what it looks like straight out of camera. It looks incredibly overexposed. It's awful. It looks awful. Well, that's what it would look like because it is a high definition file. They call them HLG files. So I've applied this HDR Tools thing, effect on it, and then you get this lovely colours. Now I've not really colour graded that, but that's what you get. And it's great. But as I say, just be aware though, this isn't a traditional 16:9 aspect ratio with this phone, with this standard app. You can use an app such as Final Cut Pro. So, not Final Cut Pro, Filmic Pro. Let's get it right here. If you've got Filmic Pro installed on the phone, it's not dear to buy. It's a great app. You've got your audio levels there clearly. And that records as a 16:9 aspect ratio. So you can still do, your 16:9 using a different app. And I would probably use Filmic Pro for a lot of stuff. It's a great app. So yeah, there we go. That is basically the Sony Experia, in very brief detail, the Sony Experia 1 Mark II, using it as a video camera and using it as a stills camera. The image stabilization, I don't know, maybe I haven't got it set right because I'm not used to using mobile phones, but I haven't found it very good. I'm still really learning a lot about mobile phone filming. If we look at that, you see now when you drop one of these files onto the timeline in Final Cut Pro, it warns you that it is a HDR file, so it knows that it's a high log gamut, or whatever they call them. High log gamut, is it? I don't know. It's a file, and look, yucky da. So you stick on this HDR tools effect, stick that in, and then when you go into HDR tools, just make sure you're changing it from HLG to Rec 709, and there you go, bada bing, done. But I know I had image stabilization turned on, but you can see I'm not very good at filming and walking. That's not very stable at all. But it's almost certainly going to be me. I'm not going to actually criticise the phone for that. But that's almost certainly me. But yeah, there we go. What have I done with the phone? There it is. There we go. That's the Sony Experia 1 Mark II. And I love the feel of it. I love its design. The one major downside I have found with it, certainly using it in the studio here, it does overheat and it shuts down very quickly, and that frustrates me. The other frustrating thing with using a mobile phone for filming this sort of thing, now I could set this up as a wide camera, it's got 4K, it'd be really nice, but if you imagine that's going to be on my tripod facing me like that, which is great, because obviously the main cameras, I wouldn't want to use the front facing camera, it's only 8 megapixel and it isn't great, so I'd want to use it this way. So this camera's facing me, I can't see what it's looking at, which is fine, but it's not fine because you're not 100% sure that it's actually recording. I don't want to see, once I've got the angle set up, I'm not bothered about seeing if the angle is right. I would have done a check on that to make sure it is. But I would like to know that it is actually recording and hasn't shut down, which is what it did do the other day when I was testing it. So that in itself is not something that excites me about using it in here. Yeah, it does overheat. And the other thing is, I've got a Bluetooth microphone, which I've been playing with, and is really good. Really nice little Bluetooth microphone. And I use that with my iPhone perfectly. And Filmic Pro works with the iPhone and this Bluetooth mic, no problem at all on my iPhone. But connecting it to this phone, the camera, the phone detects that I've got the Bluetooth mic connected. And that works, but it doesn't work with Filmic Pro, and it certainly doesn't work with the their Pro app. You can't, other than using the mic input, because it has got a 3.5mm jack input on the top there, which is handy. I can plug a microphone into that, but I can't use my Bluetooth mic. So a few little quirks like that, but overall it's a great design, and lovely crisp 4K display. Sound quality is great. It's got stereo speakers, so sound quality is great when you're playing your videos back or you're watching YouTube on it, and because you're looking at it on such a wide screen, it's really good. So if you want me to do more reviews on using, or more tutorials maybe on using the Sony Experia 1 Mark II or the iPhone for video, let me know. I'm not the expert with using phones, but I'm getting to enjoying using this phone. And I say the still images are great, as long as you're prepared to edit them and you don't use high ISO settings. I haven't printed any large prints yet. That's the next thing one of the next things I intend to do. So there we go. That's the Sony Experia 1 Mark II as a video camera and stills camera using their Pro apps. The standard app is the standard app. I think you'll find on pretty much any phone. So there we go, Xperia 1 Mark II. Hope you found that useful. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so, and hit the like button if you like the content of this video. That would be really, really appreciated. It helps me grow the channel. I really enjoy making these videos, and I know, judging by the feedback I'm getting and the comments that I'm reading, that you guys and girls are enjoying them as well. So there we go. Thanks very much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos relating to video and photography. Cheers for now. Bye.